we're gonna build a set of custom 2014 Honda Civic sedan taillights. This is definitely gonna be one of the more confusing builds that I have done just because of everything that needs to be done to it. Plus, it's a two-piece set, which makes everything extra difficult. This is not just our regular red LEDs with the red diffusion in it. Everything in here is going to be RGB. All of these LEDs are going to be addressable, as you can see right here. You probably already know, if you've seen any of my videos, that this is a kit from Aesthetic. We use a lot of their stuff in our builds. This piece right here is going to fit right in that section. You can see it's a perfect fit. This diffused bottom piece right here is going to go right here, and it leads directly into the main piece. Then these two obviously fit in the clear section. But if you noticed, we are doing full RGB, full addressable. That means that these are also going to get a clear lens swap. First thing that we need to do when building these full addressable LEDs with the individual dots is just go ahead and build out the boards. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with these smaller ones. These things are gonna move pretty quick. These over here are gonna be a little bit more confusing. Trying to figure out how the LEDs should flow through here is not gonna be the easiest task. The LEDs that we are gonna use are from a company called Next Level Neo. They definitely make some of the best addressable LEDs on the market. The thing I'm nervous about is mixing up these LEDs. One of them is an SK type of addressable LED, and the other one is a WS type of LED. So I have to make sure not to mix them up. And this bag right here is not marked, so it's gonna be interesting once we get to that point. Next Level Neo has a cheat sheet on their website that I actually printed out right here that lets me know what each of these leads do on the LEDs. So the first one over here is data in, and then you have ground, then power, then data out. We're trying to match the other side that we've already built, which means that this needs to be the very first LED. Data in needs to go in that direction. So we are going to go here and then down just like that. To help get these LEDs all the way flush, we can go ahead and just use a pocket screwdriver and push down on it. And we need to do this same thing all the way across here, and then we are going to start to solder them after that. With all of these LEDs actually installed, we can go ahead and put in the LED wire. This is actually what's going to be wired to the Blue Ghost module to turn on these LEDs. Once we get this wired up, we can actually fire these up and see how they operate. There we go. All of these are working properly. So now it is time to move on to the rest of the light. Start with the other small one, just because I think it'll be easier to get through this one than this one. This one is gonna be crazy confusing. Same with this. I still don't really know how I'm gonna do this. We'll tackle it here in a minute. This panel does have a slight problem that you will run into, especially if you're working with a flat panel. The holes on this panel are just slightly too loose to hold the LEDs in by themselves. So what we're gonna do is set all of the LEDs in place, then add some adhesive on them to hold them to the board itself, let that cure, and then we can come back and actually solder them all together. That's where this little arm grabber tool right here comes in handy. I can just set this up, set the LEDs in there in the direction that we need them to go, and then glue it without having to prop it up with something else. To glue them in, we're gonna use goop, which if you've been around this channel at all, you know that we use this a ton. It's just the best stuff that we found for these type of projects. So what I do need to do is make sure that these LEDs are installed facing this direction on the top row. And then on the second row, we're gonna turn it around the other way. The LED boards are finally built out. This took forever to do, but all of them are built. We can move on to opening up the taillights themselves. Reminder that we are building the OEM taillight back housings, but we're gonna swap over a clear lens so that you can actually see all the colors. I've never opened a set of these, but I've never opened a set of this specific year Civic taillights, but just like everything else that comes out nowadays, it is plastic welded, so we're just gonna cut it open with an ultrasonic cutter. Got the red lens off, but as you can see, it came off in pieces, which is fine for the red lens, but it makes me extremely nervous for the clear lens. We may end up just chopping up the clear lens back housing to salvage the clear lens itself. Now we need to figure out how these LED panels are supposed to fit in here. Start by taking apart the inner housing itself. It looks like several of these pieces are designed to come out, especially this little lens piece right there. Okay, we are starting assembly on the taillights themselves, and as you can see, this looks terrible. So we have other LEDs that we're gonna use. I have went ahead and tested on this side, and this looks so much better. I mean, we're all the way zoomed in here, and you cannot actually see the dots on this. These are COB addressable LEDs. It's a bunch of really teeny tiny pixels sandwiched together with a nice silicone coating that makes it look more diffused. I don't love using these, only when I absolutely have to, because they are very finicky when installing. And if you notice, this is really quick compared to this. This is one individual pixel, whereas this is going to be one individual pixel over here. So I don't love the color flow that this has compared to the other strips that we were using. But when it's not working and this is your only option, it's a good backup plan that we have. I'm gonna go ahead and finish out this side with the LEDs, and then I have to come back and rebuild this side. It also changes up my plan for the wiring for this. I was only going to use one data coming out to go to the body tail light on this side whenever I had these strips, but now I'm gonna have to have two data wires running out and going to the other side. Just changes it up slightly. Finally got these taillights done. The harness on these took me forever to get built out, forever to figure out. Anytime I do a two-piece RGB light, it just takes me forever. But they are finally done. I'm super stoked. I'm mostly stoked to have them out of the way, but also stoked with how they turned out. It looks incredible. There's a ton going on. The paintwork looks great. But I don't think I ended up filming much of the harness build because it's super boring and it was me just trying to bash my head against the wall, get it done. Mostly just me trying to figure out what all I did wrong. The main thing you have to do whenever you're building these addressable LEDs is have pretty thick wire. You gotta go with a bigger gauge than you expect, a much bigger gauge than we normally use. Typically we only have like 30 LEDs on a side, but you know, something like this is gonna be hundreds of LEDs per side, which are just sucking up a ton of power, and I always have to beef up the wire, which causes everything to kind of get a little bit bigger with the loom and everything. But these are ready to box up and ship out, which I'm very excited about and can't wait to see them on the customer's car.